Jealous brother hooked up with my fiancée right after our engagement. So I snitched to the whole family and now they're being cut off. I, 23M, recently got engaged and broke my engagement off in a span of 2 weeks. My fiancée Riley, 23F, hooked up with my older brother Adam, 27M, on the night after our engagement and my disgusting brother tried to rub it in my face to make me feel bad. Riley and I had been together for almost 3 years but she threw it all away for my brother. On the night of our engagement, she told me she was thrilled to be marrying me but went back on her word the very next day when she hooked up with my brother. I was very upset about it and broke things off through text and blocked her. I also changed the locks on my house so she wouldn't be able to come back home. Riley and I had been living together for the past year and it had been going really well. So I thought that it was the right time to propose. I never thought that she would end up betraying me for Adam, of all people, because she knows that he and I have an intense rivalry and don't get along at all. My dad passed away when I was a baby in an accident and I barely have any memories of him. Adam had spent some time with him at least but I have no recollection of what he was like. Adam never liked me and growing up, he was my biggest enemy. He was always a bully and my mother, being a single mom, didn't really have time to deal with our sibling rivalry because she had more important things on her mind. Like paying the bills and making sure there's food on the table every day. Our uncle, my dad's brother, visited a lot and tried to help out as much as he could. My mother kept in touch with my father's family even after his demise for their sake because they'd already lost their son, they didn't need to lose their grandkids too. My uncle was pretty much the only father figure I have ever known and he still is my go-to person. For Adam, it was my mother. My mother didn't play favorites but it was very apparent that if she had to pick one, it would be Adam. And that made our sibling rivalry even more intense because I wanted to be my mother's favorite as well. Unfortunately, I was always a bit of a loser growing up. I wasn't good at sports and I was mediocre at best when it came to academics. I was quite skinny and I didn't have any such talents that could set me apart. So I was always very insecure about basically everything and that made it very difficult for me to talk to people, make friends, and be popular. I was a really introverted kid and mostly kept to myself. Adam was quite the opposite. He played sports and was great at it. He wasn't too bad academically either and he had a very different physique from mine, big and sturdy, because of his athletics. Needless to say, being his little brother was even more embarrassing for me. Because even though nobody said it to my face, I knew that everybody was constantly comparing me with him and thinking that I was a loser in comparison. With time, I learned to live in his shadow and would just let him walk all over me. My self-esteem really took a hit in my childhood and I was never able to recover from it. Even until my last day of high school, I barely had any friends and nobody wanted to talk to me because I just came off as weird. Things only changed for me and started looking up when I graduated and moved to college. I was a new person there and nobody knew me as Adam's little brother. So I really grew into my own now that I didn't have to deal with Adam's constant bullying and could finally be my own person. I know it sounds cheesy but I'm so thankful that I was able to go to college out of state, where nobody knew me. Because I don't think I would have been the person that I am today, had it not been for that experience. And I have my uncle to thank for it because he was the one who paid for me to go to college. My mother had told me that she wouldn't be able to afford to send me to college so far away and wanted me to pick a location closer to home, within our city if possible. But I had my mind set and my uncle offered to cover me and stepped up. I made a lot of friends there and graduated at the top of my class. My mother and uncle attended my graduation ceremony but Adam didn't, even though I'd been present at his. After moving out, Adam and I didn't really keep in touch, for obvious reasons. He hated me for no reason and I hated him because he made my childhood and teen years a total nightmare. I was glad to be rid of him and we only met on the holidays or whenever we would come back home for birthdays. It's been years and that's the arrangement that we stuck to. We didn't consider each other family beyond the confines of our house. But I did console him and send him a message when he lost all his money a couple of years ago. He'd quit his job and tried to start his own business but failed miserably and my uncle and mother had to bail him out since he was neck deep in debt. He couldn't go back to his old job so he had to move back into our mother's house for a couple of months until he was back on his feet. Even when he finally did find a job, it wasn't as great as his previous one. But he took it because he wanted to move out of his mom's house since he was well in his 20s and he felt embarrassed to still live with his mom. This is what my uncle told me and it was quite upsetting because his life had completely unraveled. I felt bad for him and sent him a message of consolation but I think he misunderstood it and thought that I was bragging or making fun of him, so he blocked me and ignored me for the next couple of holidays. We weren't chummy when we met but tried to keep things civil and at least greeted each other, no matter how coldly. But after that message, there was no talking to each other. I would like to say that Adam's life got better but it didn't. He took the failure of his business really hard and every time I saw him after that, he seemed worse for the wear. My uncle told me that he had switched jobs 7 to 8 times after that but didn't seem content with any of them. His clothes got shabbier and we could physically see the state of his mind reflected in how he acted at family gatherings. He was always either drinking or quietly staring at nothing. I say this from the bottom of my heart but it really made me feel bad for him when I saw him in that state. I had always hated him growing up but now, it was just very difficult to hate someone who was already going through so much. My uncle always tried to include him in our conversations, but he didn't seem interested and would always take off early. I had also started bringing Riley to these gatherings after we had been together for a year. She knew about Adam and even seemed concerned about him, but there was not much that we could do. Fast forward to our engagement, which took place 2 weeks ago. Riley and I were at my uncle's house for his birthday dinner. I had asked him first and made sure that he was okay with me proposing to her at his dinner party, and he was, so I went ahead with it. The family would all be there anyway, and my uncle had a beautiful house with a lovely garden, so it was just the perfect place. I had even invited her parents, but they weren't going to show up until after the proposal, so she wouldn't be able to guess what was about to happen. After my uncle had cut the cake and stuff, I took her outside and popped the question. She said yes, and then we went back in to announce it to everyone and celebrate. I did notice that Adam left within minutes of me making the announcement, but I didn't think too much of it because I was quite busy with everybody else that evening. And also, he usually does take off from family gatherings quite early, so it wasn't anything out of the blue. Riley and I had a great evening, and then we went back home. She didn't mention anything about Adam or his weird behavior to me after we got back home, which she usually does whenever we go to any family event of mine. We were both really wine drunk and tired, so I was knocked out as soon as my head hit the pillow, but I did wake up accidentally around 2 in the morning because I had to use the loo. When I woke up, I realized that Riley was still on her phone, and when I asked her who she was talking to, she told me that she was telling a couple of her friends about the engagement. That seemed innocent enough, so I didn't suspect anything and went back to sleep soon after. But 2 days later, while I was at work, I received a bunch of texts from Adam. It was really unexpected because the last time we had a conversation, he had blocked me. It was just screenshots of his conversation with Riley, and in those chats, they were planning to get together and hook up, which they did. It started with Adam reaching out to her to congratulate her on the engagement, and she asked him why he wasn't present for the rest of the evening. So he told her that he was just upset about a lot of things and wanted to get out of there while he could because he didn't want to intrude on my happiness. He talked about how we have never been friends and he felt like it was inappropriate for him to be present on such an occasion for me, so he left. He was making himself look like some sad little puppy who wasn't wanted, but the truth is that I really wouldn't have cared if he stayed for the evening. He only wanted Riley to sympathize with him so it would be easier for him to manipulate her. And that's exactly what happened. She started consoling him and told him that there was somebody out there for him. She also said that I was a great guy and I didn't mean to rub it in his face, so she apologized on our behalf if he felt bad about what happened. And Adam responded by saying that he would never be able to find someone like Riley, so he didn't see the point of even searching. That sly jerk started flirting with her and she flirted back in kind. And suddenly they were making plans to meet. And I know for a fact that she did go over to his house the night after our engagement because she'd told me that she was going to spend the night at her friend's place to tell her everything about the engagement. On top of that, Adam had also sent me pictures of Riley's clothes on his bed, and that was all that I needed to see. It was a sick and disgusting thing to do, and it really caught me off guard, but I took the rest of the day off and went back home immediately after I received Adam's texts. I was sobbing uncontrollably, but even with tears in my eyes, I decided to get the lock changed and started packing whatever I could lay my hands on. Whatever I saw and knew that it belonged to Riley, I put it in a cardboard box, and once I was done, I placed it outside the door. By the time I was done with all of it, it was almost time for Riley to come home. I hadn't seen her since the previous night because she'd told me that she'd go to work directly from her friend's place. But of course, now I know that she went to work from Adam's house. I wanted to break up with her in person, but after a while, I decided that it wasn't worth it because she had cheated on me literally the day after I proposed, and she promised to spend the rest of her life with me. I was very upset, so I decided to end it through text. I sent her a message saying that I knew that she had hooked up with Adam and I didn't want to be with her anymore. I told her that she disgusted me and said that all her stuff was right outside the door, so she could just grab the box and go because I didn't want to see her. If she had left anything at home, then she could come back later and collect it. I told her that we were over, then sent the message and blocked her. A few minutes after I sent that text, Riley was at my doorstep, knocking and begging me to let her in. She was devastated and I could hear it in her voice. She was begging me to give her a chance to explain herself and kept telling me that she knew she had made a huge mistake, but she just wanted me to hear her out. It went on for about half an hour and it was incredibly difficult for me to keep my calm and ignore it. But after she had tried everything, right from crying to manipulation and back to begging, she finally left. Just to be on the safe side, I still didn't open the door for about 1 hour after the begging stopped to make sure that she still wasn't waiting outside. Once I was sure she was gone, I ordered some takeout, had dinner, and then tried to go to sleep, but I was so upset that I couldn't bring myself to close my eyes. I wanted to do something big to get back at Adam and really teach him a lesson, but I couldn't think of anything. I kept brainstorming on my own for a while, and when nothing came to me, I decided to take the easiest way out and just forwarded those screenshots to everybody in the family saying this is what my dear brother Adam did to me. And then I turned my phone off and went to sleep. I honestly didn't have a plan in mind, and I didn't even set forth any conditions to my relatives. So whatever they did, it was of their own volition and I had absolutely no part to play in it. Everybody in the family responded with sympathy and told me that they had blocked him and were going to cut him off from everywhere. Everybody was in shock after they got to know what Adam had done to me and reached out to console me, except for my mom. She didn't talk to me in the first couple of days after I sent everybody that message, but she visited me a few days later and she looked very upset. I knew that she wasn't going to sit and console me like the others. I was right because she had visited me to talk to me about my actions. She told me that she could understand that I was upset with Adam for whatever he did, and rightfully so, but even then, I should have refrained from publicizing the incident. Her reason was that Adam was already suffering so much because he was a grown man living hand to mouth with a failed business and no prospects in his love life either. He would have a few flings here and there, but there was nothing permanent, and it was especially sad because he was a really promising young man when he was younger. So nobody could have imagined that he would turn out to be so unsuccessful and sad. On the other hand, nobody could have expected me to be as successful as I am today. Be it in my line of work or my relationships, my mom believed that Adam did this out of jealousy, which I already knew. For context, I work in an architecture firm and have a high-paying job. I worked really hard to get where I am now, and if Adam had researched his business properly instead of rushing into it headfirst, then it wouldn't have failed and he wouldn't be earning less than half of what I make. But coming back to the point, while my mother was telling me all this, it almost felt like she was trying to justify what he did. So I interrupted her and asked her if she was actually trying to make it seem okay for Adam to hook up with my fiancée just the night after we got engaged simply because his life was sad and pathetic. She took a minute and then she said that it wasn't okay, but I needed to understand where he was coming from and be a little sympathetic and forgiving. She went on to tell me that the family cutting ties with Adam had hit him really hard and he was miserable. The family get-togethers were the only thing that he had going on for him because he felt embarrassed to be around his friends who were a lot more successful than he was, so he didn't keep in touch with them, and family was all that he had. I was happy about that, and I didn't really care that he was miserable because he had broken up with me and Riley. So he deserved this, and I had no sympathy to spare for him, but my mother believed that I should be the bigger person and talk to everyone to convince them somehow to give him a chance. Not only that, she also wanted me to reach out to him and clear the air. I told her that I was not doing any of it, and she was crazy to even expect that I would reach out to the person who ruined my relationship on purpose. I really just snapped at her. I told her that I knew she had favorites even though she didn't really make it evident. But she didn't have to rub it in my face and make me feel so awful. I told her that if I had done the same thing to Adam, then she wouldn't have been trying to justify it and make it look like no big deal. She probably would have been all up in arms about it, and I knew that for a fact. She tried to deny it and we started arguing. It turned into a big fight where she got very upset and huffy. She left the house after saying that she wouldn't talk to me until I reached out to Adam and tried to sort things out with him. It's been a couple of days since then, and my relatives have been checking in on me. Mostly it's my uncle who has been texting with me daily. Riley also sends me messages from time to time, hoping to win me back or at least have a conversation with me, but I haven't replied to her. I haven't blocked her yet either, but I know that I have to, and I will, eventually. The only person that I haven't heard from after our big fight is my mother, and I really feel bad about it. I already mentioned that I knew my brother was her favorite because they always seemed to have some inexplicable bond, even when I was a kid. But my mom never played favorites. That's up until now, at least. I just feel very confused about what she said. I am content with my life right now, and it's not like I'm depressed or whatever, but I do want my mother in my life, but I don't think I agree with her opinion on the whole Adam and Riley situation. So what do you guys think? Ida for sending my family proof of my brother and my fiancé cheating on me? Update 1. The people have spoken and the people have been heard. Thank you so much for all the comments on the original post and for reading through it so patiently. I'm glad that so many of you had great advice for me on what to do next and reassured me that I wasn't in the wrong, because my mother saying all that really made me feel that I was somehow out of line for what I did. But evidently, that's not the case, and I have no need to reach out to anybody. I also spoke to my uncle about what my mom said. I hadn't told anybody earlier because this was kind of personal and I didn't want to discuss this with other people, but my uncle is family and I felt considerably better after speaking to him. He told me that he had also noticed my mother always favored Adam over me. It wasn't always very obvious, but it was definitely there, and anybody with a brain could tell that she had a favorite, and it wasn't me. He told me that he really felt awful about what happened with me because he knew how strongly I felt for Riley, and yet she didn't think twice before hooking up with Adam, in spite of knowing about our relationship. It was upsetting, but there was not much that I could do, and I was honestly kind of okay since I like to think that I dodged a bullet there. I haven't moved on from her entirely, but I know I'll get there. That's really not what I'm worried about. However, my relationship with my mother is something that I don't want to lose. But if she acts like this and victimizes Adam, then I don't see a way for us to get along or reconcile. My uncle thinks that I should just give up on it. He said that he knows my mother, and he also knows that she isn't going to back down if she believes that she is right. He told me that I shouldn't hold out hope that she might come around and talk to me because it's quite unlikely, since she has been visiting Adam almost every day ever since our family cut him off. It hurt that she was still going out of her way to look after him, even though I was the one who actually lost a relationship because of him, and quite an important one at that. But I also understand that I can't help the situation, and it is what it is. That's something my uncle taught me, to just accept things and let it go, and I guess that's what I have to do. I tried arguing with my mother and making her see sense, but she wasn't interested in the truth. She was only interested in making sure that Adam had all the support that he needed. Fine by me, I guess. Update 2. So, it has been almost 2 weeks since I broke up with Riley, and she had been texting me almost every other day for about a week after we broke up. But then she just stopped, probably after she realized that begging me to take her back wasn't going to work. And I don't want to speak to her or hear her side of the story. I don't even know why she thought explaining her side would make it any better, because as far as I'm concerned, nothing excuses cheating, and that's just how it is. But she reached out to me yesterday and told me that she wanted to come by and collect some of the things that had been left behind. That's when I finally replied, because now, we were getting down to business instead of our conversations just her begging me to talk to her and me ignoring all those texts. I told her that she could come by today because I was taking a day off anyway, and might as well get this over with. So she dropped by around noon, and I could tell that she was really upset. She looked worse for the wear and didn't look me in the eye even once for the entire time that she was there. I didn't say anything to her either after I opened the door and let her in. There was silence in the house while she packed her things, and I sat on the couch in the living room and avoided looking at her. Once she was done packing, she told me that she was going to leave, and even though I had a lot to say to her, I just said goodbye and then went back to my phone. She didn't deserve anything more than that. And after that, she was just gone for good. It feels weird, but in a nice way, because this just means that I don't ever have to talk to her or be reminded of her by things around the house or her messages. I blocked her a few minutes after she left and decided to celebrate by watching our favorite movie on my own. Still no word from my mother, but with time, it's becoming easier for me to come to terms with it. At least now I know for sure that she would never have taken my side here simply because I'm not Adam. So whatever I did for her would never be good enough, and honestly, I'm sick of trying. My uncle told me that he also had a fight with her recently while he was trying to defend me, and she didn't like it, so they aren't on speaking terms anymore either. I can't believe that she is willing to sacrifice her relationship with both of us just so she can continue defending Adam, even though she knows that he's a jerk. It just doesn't make any sense to me, but I guess if that's what she wants, then whatever. Update 3. It's been a month since I posted here last, and I can't believe that until a month ago, I was still whining about how my mother doesn't love me. But I'm better now, and I just don't care about what my mother thinks. She is just as delusional and selfish as my brother, and that's probably why they get along so well, because they're both horrible people, and I was quite unfortunate to be related to both of them, but now I have no ties with either of the two. And I am so thankful for it, because they don't deserve somebody like me, and neither did Riley. I was always too good for them, and if they couldn't see that, then that's on them. It's their loss all the way. I don't have to feel bad for anything. And that's exactly why I don't feel bad about the fact that nobody from our family talks to them anymore and doesn't invite them to any events. They just have no link to any of us anymore, and I couldn't be happier about it. Riley and I haven't spoken ever since she came back here to collect her things for one last time, because I blocked her afterward. And so did most of our common friends, after they found out the real reason behind our engagement falling through. But my mother did try to reach out to me a few days ago, and even now, she doesn't think that she needs to apologize to me, which is just insane to even think about. Even in the last conversation that we had, she was still harping on about how Adam is suffering and has been diagnosed with clinical depression. I told her that I could give her a psychotherapist's phone number but nothing else, and I definitely wasn't going to talk to our family members now to make them sympathize with him. And then she started trying to manipulate me by going all emotional and sentimental on me. She was really laying it on thick and said that she had already lost her husband. She didn't want to lose the two most important men in her life now because of some stupid, petty fight over a girl. It was interesting that she saw the fight as stupid and petty, because the way I remember it, the fight was not over some girl, it was over my fiancée. And it was neither stupid nor petty, because Adam had decided to hook up with Riley on purpose, all because he wanted to make me feel bad. So I think I was perfectly within reason to be mad at him and never want to speak to him again. As for the rest of our family, I hadn't coerced them into doing anything. They cut Adam and my mother off because of their own behavior, and I had absolutely nothing to do with that. So if they want to blame somebody, they should blame themselves. This is what I told my mother before blocking her. Now I can finally move on with my life, and they can go to hell, for all I care.